What's going on, everybody? So I've finally gotten around to setting up the miniDSP Flex, or I'm going to do that in this video. Now, I apologize in advance for those that have waited for a miniDSP Flex video based on my unboxing video. Originally, I had an idea of using my old Onkyo, I can't even remember the model number, to basically act as an amplifier of sorts, letting the miniDSP Flex do all the processing, kind of acting like a processor, and using the Onkyo just for amplification. But unfortunately, I don't know if something happened during the move last year, but essentially the Onkyo is just dead. It won't turn on, nothing, I've tried fixed it, so I kind of threw that idea out the window. I reached out to SVS, and they were gracious and awesome enough to send out their Prime Wireless Pros to work alongside the miniDSP Flex. Now, they also sent the PB4000s along with that. Not that I'll be using that in here, that's actually going in the theater room as part of a review. Hey, Future Brad here. So I totally forgot to mention that miniDSP did provide the Flex and UMic 2 I use in this video. I actually did a full unboxing video on that already. Totally spaced and forgot to mention that, but neither SVS or miniDSP sponsored this video in any way other than sending me the products. They're not telling me what to say, they're not paying me any money. They just sent the products out and they were awesome enough to provide those so I could make this content for you guys. Just wanted to let you know. Okay, back to me rambling. But the Prime Wireless Pros will be the permanent setup in the living room because we've actually been watching TV shows and stuff in here on the Hisense U7H, and man, oh, the speakers on that set are just awful. I mean, most sets are just awful, right? So this video is not really going to be a tutorial. I'm going to set everything up, kind of bring you along for the ride, kind of give you an overview real quick. I will be using the miniDSP Flex as a processor in this whole configuration, meaning I will be sending a full range signal through optical out of the Hisense U7H into the miniDSP Flex. Then I will be hooking up the Prime Wireless Pros via left and right RCA cables. And then I'll be hooking up two PB2000 Pros to this as well. Now I'll show you the back of the miniDSP Flex in a moment so I could basically walk you through exactly how I'm setting it up on my end. That way, in case you're doing this now or in the future or kind of have an idea, then you can see exactly how I did it and maybe go that route or figure out if you need to do something else. But essentially, I'll be using the parametric EQs in the miniDSP Flex along with the alignment tools inside the miniDSP Flex to basically get everything EQ'd and working nicely together. And then I will also be using the crossovers within the miniDSP Flex to set everything up and cross everything over. Now, the Prime Wireless Pros, it does need to be mentioned, they have a built-in 80 Hertz crossover anytime you plug anything into the subwoofer out on that. But I will not be using the subwoofer out. I'm only going to feed a signal to the Prime Wireless Pros from the miniDSP Flex. And basically the Flex, I'll be able to tell it exactly where I want the frequencies to stop on the Prime Wireless Pros and start on the PB2000 Pros. So anyway, this intro has gone on long enough already. I'll show you the back of the Flex now so we can go ahead and get started. All right, so like I said, the hookup is pretty simple. I'm going optical or Toslink out from the Hisense U7H, so I'll just plug that in there. And then for the inputs on the Prime Wireless Pros, I'll actually be using output 1 and 2 on the Flex here. So I'll just plug these up. These are actually some really old component cables from THX. I think they were monster cables. The outputs 3 and 4 are going to be for the sub. So I will have sub 1 or the front left sub on the third output, and then the front right sub on the fourth output. Now I'll be using USB through my MacBook to basically control the Flex, including the device console to set everything up, as well as sending a signal to this from there just for setup. And then I will switch over to Toslink once I'm done, and I'll make sure that all of my settings are saved. Now I just gotta get everything set up, so cue the time lapse. So I just hooked everything up to the Flex here. Now I know the camera angle kind of stinks and it's out of focus, but essentially I didn't want to move anything out of the way. I didn't want to move the TV stand or the dresser that the TV's on, the switch in the back. So I just ran cables one by one, exactly in the order that I showed you just a moment ago on the back of the Flex. Now what's funny is I actually didn't record this in time lapse, so this happened. Seriously? I continued hooking up the Prime Wireless Pros, and there's no speaker cables between them. It's a proprietary serial connection that just connects the left and right speaker. pretty simple. I also did some basic cable management. We are going to eventually wall mount the Hisense U7H that you see here, so all of this will be redone at some point. So I wasn't really too concerned with the cleanliness overall, but I did want it to look presentable because if we have guests over or something, then I want it to look good. I then installed the spiked feet on the bottom of the PB2000 Pros. I just find it easier to move them around without the feet on the bottom. These were actually sitting on the floor in the theater room because I have the PB3000s currently hooked up. I then moved on to getting the UMic 2 set up on the mic stand using a method I think I covered a couple years ago. Looks kind of funny at the speed it is here, but basically you get the microphone at ear height and you're good. I then sat on the floor to do all the calibrations, and you'll notice I switched out the MacBook Air right here for my Windows 10 laptop. I was having issues I'll talk about in a second, but switching over to the Windows 10 laptop pretty much solved all those issues, and it was smooth sailing from then on out. So everything is complete, and it always takes longer. It seems when you're recording anything, it probably took 2 or 3 times as long. Overall, I'm really impressed with how everything played out. Now, initially, you'll notice in the time lapse, I was using my MacBook Air, but for whatever reason, I could not get the miniDSP Flex or the UMic 2 to play nice with it. I don't know what was going on. It wasn't reading the timing references properly, and there was some funky things go. Honestly, I don't know. It was kind of my first time using the MacBook Air to do anything with Room EQ Wizard outside of maybe just a measurement or two. Focus this camera, thank you. Outside of doing a measurement or two, yeah, I just ended up saying, you know, I don't want to troubleshoot anything. I'm just going to go use my Windows 10 laptop. And once I did, everything was great. So I basically calibrated the subs first. I just used the typical method that I've used in my tutorial videos for that. Went really well, super smooth response out of just 2 subwoofers in that large space. And I know I didn't show most of the room, but basically it's kind of an open floor plan essentially. So the living room there leads into the dining room and the kitchen. There's no real room treatment or anything anywhere. So the fact that I was able to get decent response out of everything there, like I couldn't believe it. So I did the subwoofers first though, and then I moved on to the speakers, and the Prime Wireless Pros already measured extremely well. Once I got the volume where I wanted it, I set up a target curve in Room EQ Wizard, just kind of a standard target curve for the overall frequency range. That's how I have my other system set up in my theater room. All the speakers are EQ'd to that target curve with the bass a little hotter because I like a little more bass. And then I measured the speakers, time aligned the right channel based on the left channel. It just needed a few milliseconds of delay. I went to EQ the speakers, and after doing a few calibrations with Denon and Marantz receivers, this was like a completely different ball game. Honestly, it was a one-click and you're kind of done thing. So just at the main listening position, I didn't really measure any other points because I'll cover that in the full tutorial. Just in the main listening position, I got exactly the predicted response afterwards, and I'll throw some measurements up now. It matches almost perfectly to that target line using the EQ in Room EQ Wizard and importing it into the miniDSP Flex. I was just like floored. I did adjust the volume slightly afterwards on the speakers within the Flex, the device console software. I didn't really even do any tweaking after that. I probably could have just a little bit to try to smooth some frequencies out a little more, but overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. It also sounds fantastic. Man, the Prime Wireless Pros get freaking loud. Now, I can't really do any type of audio demos. I don't have the equipment for it. It's going to sound like crap on YouTube with the microphones that I have. It sounds really, really full, really dynamic. I don't know, honestly, how to describe it. This isn't like a review of the Prime Wireless Pros or the PB2000 Pros. It's more about how did the whole setup process go with the miniDSP Flex as a processor, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video. And I'd forgotten how easy setting up just 2 speakers and 2 subs is. Normally I'm setting up 9 speakers and 4 subs or something like that. And it's a process, as you know. So this was a lot simpler. Really, really enjoyed it. So I also used the miniDSP Flex to set the crossover. So I crossed the Prime Wireless Pros over at around 80 Hertz, but then I also applied a low pass filter on the subwoofers. And that low pass filter will just prevent the subwoofers from playing anything above a certain frequency that you set. That was something that I kind of got tripped up on a little bit. So if you set the crossover on the speakers to 80 hertz and then you set the low pass filter on the subs to 80, you're gonna have some drops there because there's gonna be some frequencies that aren't covered. And basically you have to adjust the frequency or the low pass filter of the subwoofer to play a little bit more. So I think I sell on like 120 hertz or something like that. I think I just use the stock slope, like 24 dB, the Butterworth slope. I just like the name Butterworth. It sounds cool. It belongs in the audio world, but overall it went really well. And I don't have a problem recommending the Flex at this point, even with the issues I'm about to talk about, to anyone setting up a 2.2 channel setup or a 2.1 channel setup that wants the excellent parametric EQs that miniDSP offers. With that said, there are some slight issues and hiccups. I mentioned the issue with the MacBook Air. I still don't know. It's an M1 MacBook Air. I don't know. Maybe it's the Anchor dongle I'm using, something. It's weird. The other issue kind of revolves around miniDSP in general. And over the years, I just had issue after issue with USB cable extensions and USB cables with any other devices. They're very, very picky on what type of cables and cable extensions they use. So basically none of the cable extensions that I have, they're all USB 3.0 extension cables around 8 to 10 feet. None of them work with the UMic 2 or the miniDSP Flex or even my miniDSP 2x4 HD. They will, however, all work on the UMic 1. I don't know what's going on there. Another thing is, and I don't know, this may be correctable. I'll have to dive into that for the full review of the miniDSP Flex. I have the Flex just underneath the Hisense U7H. I don't know if to blame Hisense here or the miniDSP Flex, but they seem to be using a lot of this same IR command. So the miniDSP Flex comes with a remote that you can switch profiles, adjust the volume. But what I notice is if I adjust the volume or I mute the miniDSP Flex with that remote, I grab the Hisense U7H remote to, scroll through YouTube or Plex or something, I'll unmute it or it'll change some setting on the miniDSP Flex. Not anything like important. It's not gonna flip through presets. I haven't had it do that yet. But yeah, it's kind of annoying when you're adjusting the volume on one thing on the miniDSP Flex and then you go to access something else on the TV and it's like changing the volume even further. It's weird. So I don't know. I'll need to dive in further to see if I could fix that, but that's just something I noticed. So other than all those small little issues, it's been awesome. My wife and I've watched a few episodes of Modern Family. I've watched a bunch of demo clips and everything just sounds really great. I love the functionality of just having the miniDSP Flex as the processor. It's not super big and bulky. I mean, honestly, though, the PB2000 Pros are a bit overkill in that room. I'm blocking the AC return vent a little bit. So I don't know that the PB2000 Pros will be a permanent fixture there. I think I might just stick with the Prime Wireless Pros and the miniDSP Flex. Now, if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Also, have you used the Flex to set up a 2.1 or 2.2 channel system, or even the miniDSP 2x4 HD? You can use it for that too. Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. Also, do you have any advice for people like myself who have USB cable issues with miniDSP devices? Let me know in the comment section below too. If you help me out, I'm sure other people will appreciate it as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.